Recorded. Yay. We have two more lunchtime learnings coming up in this series. Next month on November the 9th, we have Is There Value in Microlearning, which will be a panel discussion. We have Dr. Joe Tyler from Penn State, Robin DeFelice from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, LaTanya Askew, who is one of our own at LaSalle. John Caputo is on that program, and so is Cassie Laborio from InSync Training. So it should be a very interesting panel discussion. We're talking about the trends in e-learning to become smaller and briefer, the concept of these little learning bites. And we're going to discuss, is this appropriate in all cases? And when should it be used, and when's it not a good idea? I think you'll find this particularly applicable to microlearning, mobile learning. In December, we have Kaleem Islam. For you folks who know him, you'll welcome him back. Kaleem is awesome, and he's going to talk about practical project management for instructional designers, which should be really good. I'm sure Kaleem's firm does training for the back end of the stock exchange, all the software that runs the stock exchange, so and the financial manipulation. So I'm sure he's been doing a lot of updating and training in the last couple years. So right now I'd like to talk to you just briefly about the Instructional Technology Management Program, and then we will get underway with our lunchtime learning. Okay, Brenda? Righty, are you ready to learn? The Instructional Technology Management Program at LaSalle is all about e-learning. Are you ready to learn on a screen, online, on a device? We believe that this is the future of learning. And my own personal belief is it's not a question of online learning or face-to-face learning. I think it's a question of and. I think we're going to see, and we are seeing, technologies incorporated more and more and more into all facets of learning. The Instructional Technology Management Program is an MS degree. It is a Master's of Science degree. It is online. We do get together 3 times a year, and if you're in the area or you care to join us at any time, that would be awesome. Teresa lost the audio. If you lost the audio, again, you can call in and you can find the number to call by putting your cursor over the little phone icon in the bottom left hand part of the screen. So what kind of jobs can you get with this kind of degree? I will say very, very proudly, I may add, that everybody, all of our alumni are gainfully employed, and the types of jobs are really far-reaching, everything from manager, instructional architect, jobs in training and development, human resources. Different kinds of business sectors that are into e-learning. You know, one of the good things about this recession is our field has really, really exploded. While some training jobs and education jobs have really been eliminated and felt this financial squeeze, generally in e-learning, things have been pretty good. So these are, again, some more examples of job titles that if you're interested in these things, you might be interested in the program. Basically, the world is getting smaller. Globalization, multinational companies, and diversity all have helped fuel the fire for interconnectivity and learning across the enterprise. ASTD has picked this as one of the 25 top careers for the next few years ahead. It's a cross-disciplinary program. I think it's a unique program. There really isn't anything out there like what we're doing, and we're very proud of our market niche. We would love to have you. If you're interested, there's a lot more information out on the website, www.lasalle.edu/ITM. It is a practical program. You do a capstone at the end. You develop an e-learning portfolio over the course of the program. And our mission is to give you the leadership skills and credentials necessary to know what good e-learning looks like and then help lead us to the future. For those of you who don't know anything about LaSalle University is one of many universities in the United States and across the globe that's run by the Christian Brothers. The LaSallians educate over 1 million people worldwide. Some of their other colleges in the United States are Manhattan College in New York. There's another LaSalle out in Chicago, I believe it is. There's, I think, 18 universities. They also educate a lot of secondary. They have secondary schools. There's a LaSalle in Madrid. There's a LaSalle in Barcelona. The whole focus is education should be practical. So, and through education, you should give back. So we're attempting to do that. We are online, but we have campuses downtown Philadelphia on 1900 West Olney Avenue, down in Newtown, right off the Newtown bypass in Lower Bucks County, and then in Montgomery County at the Metroplex, which is at Plymouth Meeting and the Turnpike, all of which we try to use from time to time and are part of your LaSalle. All right, the best way to get started if you're interested in this is to go online, fill out an application. If you have any questions, give me a call. Principle of Instructional Design, the Adult as Learner, Project Management. This is all out on the website.
Hey, when are we going to get to the actual training part of these festivities?
We're going to be there. I don't know who said that, but we'll be there in a minute. So I love the saying from John Chambers that education over the internet is going to be so big that it's going to make email look like a rounding error. I thank you for your patience. We are able to bring these to you for free because of LaSalle University. We always try to do a little, presentation in the beginning so that they keep allowing us to do these things. Now we are going to move on to our lunchtime learning for October 2010. And while I'm bringing up the slides here, which for whatever reason I have about a couple second delay here to get these up, I'd like to introduce you to our two presenters, both of which I've known for quite a while. The topic today, overcoming the pressures of time, money, and technology to create e-learning that works. When I saw this slide, I had to laugh. I mean, I saw this, I saw caution. This project contains many moving parts, has no budget, and is due yesterday. I howled, because how true can that be? Joe and Noelle, I'm not sure how you want to do this. You can flip the slides, or I can flip the slides for you as we go forward here. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to promote everybody so that you can type and use the tool. Should come up on your screen in the content area on the left-hand side. And if you could do one thing to improve your e-learning development process, what would it be?
So it looks like everybody is being promoted to presenter, which means that you can affect the presentation. You can click on the little T for text tool over on the side, and we would like you to just type in some of your comments right on the slide, like I'm going to do right now.
The teaching and stuff in there, so it's so hideous.
So just remember that while you're a presenter, you have the audio privileges are on for everybody. So if you talk, we're all going to hear it. I love the comment. If you could type, folks, that would be great. Give us some input. Okay, you can also put them in the chat. Use more vision representations, all right? Somebody in purple, I noticed the use of purple, more time for development.
More time for development needs a few extra exclamation points at the end. Feel free to type anywhere on the slide. You can type right over the picture of my face if you want. I won't be offended. We just want to make sure that we can read all your ideas. Oh, thank you for the exclamation points. That's excellent. And somebody wrote a note, and I can't quite read. It says, have SMEs as and I'm having a hard time. Can you retype that? Or
that was me, Joe. That was me. And my thought there was have SMEs as a captive audience. It always comes back to capturing that content. And one of the things, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and one of the things that hasn't changed, unfortunately, in 10 years is trying to get a hold of that SME and get out of their brain what you need in a timely manner so that you have the content that you need to produce something that's good.
And I see someone has found the clear or erase button.
That was interesting. that wasn't me,
That's okay.
Joe.
That clears or erases everything. There is a little button with an arrow going back next to the T. If you want to erase what you wrote, that's fine, but that's okay. I think we've got some of those captured, and I imagine that a lot of us are all thinking about these things as far as more time for development, need more money, how do we make it more interesting, more visual? Are SMEs captive? Was that what you said, Bobby?
Yeah, yeah, captive SMEs, so that you had the time with them that you needed when you needed them, in a timely manner to get what you need to get your content in the shape that you need it. I'm going to take a minute here, Joe, and just introduce you with Noelle, and then I will turn it over to you two, and we can move on. Our two presenters today are Noelle Archambault, who I have known for, it seems like forever. She is an incredible instructional designer and e-learning consultant with more than 13 years experience. Lately, she has been up to her ears with SAP's global marketing organization and teaching for us at LaSalle. She holds a master's degree in educational media and computers from Arizona State University, and she was also co-founder of the Philadelphia ASTD e-learning SIG many moons ago. A dear friend of mine, and I'm thrilled to have her here. Joe Mullick is a trainer and instructional designer with 10+ years experience in design and development of e-learning, instructional-led training, and project management. Right now, Joe's with the University of Pennsylvania and on the board of ASTD Greater Philadelphia. He holds degrees in business administration and organizational dynamics from Villanova and University of Pennsylvania. I've also had the privilege of knowing Joe for many, many moons. You know, we always tease him and call him the king of frugal, because Joe manages to get things done with what we would call a rather restricted budget and still keep his sense of humor. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have him there also. I'm going to turn the presentation, no budget, just we don't have a restricted budget. He works for a nonprofit, they have no budget. I'm going to turn this over to Joe and Noelle. Welcome, folks.
Well, thanks for signing on today. We really appreciate it. And if we can, we're going to take a look at some more of those ideas as far as what you would like to have a little bit different. And then Noelle and I came up with a couple of questions and some case scenarios that we'd just like to take a look at and get comments from everybody on, getting your ideas and putting them together with ours. Now, Noelle and I didn't even have a chance to coordinate some of the case studies, but I put one together, and her comment to me was, that's the project that I'm working on right now. So hopefully they will ring true to you guys as well, and we'll get some good discussion going on. So time challenges is something that people have already mentioned. This happens to us quite frequently. We get a last-minute request for e-learning or create some kind of content for a new program or computer system and whatnot. My impression is that sometimes people out of the field treat e-learning as if it were some kind of magic, like put it up on the web is the comment that I heard. And put it up on the web, I think to them means just kind of like snap your fingers and it's going to happen. And it's hard to convey the time and effort that it takes behind the scenes to make that magic happen up on the screen. But in this particular question, one of the things that we were thinking about was, what are the options in going back forth as far as doing an e-learning course versus a live virtual course? And we'd like some comments, pros and cons each. And like I said, some people are not having good luck with the audio, but we have the chat on, and we've also turned it on so you can draw all over our presentation and make sure that everybody sees your comments right there. So if anybody would like to jump in and either have a pro, a con, a suggestion, or a thought on the topic, please feel free to go right ahead.
So feel free to type in the chat, and if you would like to talk, just raise your hand, and we will go right down the list. So what are your thoughts about creating a self-paced e-learning course versus a live virtual class, which is what we're doing here? Live, virtual, and face-to-face can certainly come together more quickly, Joe.
Well, that is definitely one of the things that we try to do if it's at all possible, which is even if folks are looking to have an online course, our proposal would suggest that why don't we do a live version of that first, just to make sure that we've got the content nailed down, that the subject matter experts are comfortable with what it is that we're going to provide before we put the effort into converting that into some kind of online format.
Yeah, and I just thought I'd throw in a example here is a lot of times when you have short timelines, you're tempted to put together a live session. And some of the challenges that I found in my current position is I'm training people all over the world, and a lot of times just finding a time to get everyone together is really tough. So, for instance, I had one session where the people we needed to train are over in Prague and India, but yet my trainers are in New York and Vancouver. And so try looking at a calendar and, try to figure out a time where everyone's up at the same time. So I forget, I think we once did a session at 11 o'clock at night, because it was early morning over there, and it was late at night for me and the person in New York, but, only 8 o'clock for my other trainer in Vancouver. So a lot of times, a live session isn't necessarily, practical, or, maybe you're doing training for a call center and you can't have all the people off the phone at the same time. Your customers aren't going to be happy. So I just thought it would be fun to get a little discussion going on if you do have time challenges, what are some things you need to think about if you're going to hold a live session, or would a self-paced session work better? And if you are going to do a self-paced session, then, what do you need to have in place to make it happen and to have it come together quickly? So.
I'd like to raise my hand on that one. There's another thing here too, and it's back to those objectives. What do people really learn out of things? I mean, we're here for an hour. We're here to have a little bit of fun. Hopefully people take away, one or two things that will work for them in the future. But in terms of delivering heavy-duty kinds of technical content, or large amounts of content that you want people to really learn, I just real briefly tell the story of one of the women in our office who just came back from a 3-day symposium. It was your typical seminar where there was a keynote, there were breakout sessions, and, this went on for 3 days, lunch, snack, dinner, and then there was a, wind-up keynote. And when she got back to the office, I said, hey, how was it up there? What was it? Was it good? And she was like, yeah, it was great. We had a great time. And she was like, the keynotes were interesting. And she was like, I can't remember anything else. I don't remember anything else that we did. And I think that, if you're honest, that's pretty typical.
If the folks who are on can find, if they haven't already, the little hand raise icon. Just curious, who needs to deliver content globally where the time is going to be an issue no matter what. And if you're not sure where the hand raise icon is, you find a little smiley face underneath the list of people, and there's a check mark to the left of that. You can say yes. Okay, it looks like it's Dorothea and Lori, or besides Noelle, are the only ones who work with people globally, at least for this particular group.
So we've talked a little bit about live training and live virtual sessions, but what about e-learning, self-paced e-learning? So what if you have to put together, this e-learning up on the web, just put it on the web like Joe says, right? People just say, oh, just put it up on the web. What are some things you guys think that you need to have in place in order to get e-learning done, quickly and get it up there? And again, you can either type in the chat or type on the whiteboard. Or I know a couple people have their hands raised, so if you'd rather speak, I know Dorothy has her hand up. Oops, now you just put the hand down. Yeah, so I see someone just typed in to create templates. Again, that's great. If you have some sort of templates in place where you can basically just plug your content in, that's going to make your training go a lot quicker versus if you're, just starting with a blank slate. Access to SMEs, another one Jane just typed in. I mean, that's great. If you don't know the content and you can't write the content and you're relying on a SME to give you that content, and that SME is, either busy or not available or, on the beach or whatever that SME is, you're not going to be able to get your training done in a timely fashion. So yeah, I think definitely, lining up those SMEs and making sure you're on their calendar and you have, ample access to them.
I find that regarding the SMEs, well, I'm in a fortunate position of since I work for the university, I frequently am somewhat familiar with the content of the training and can push forward that way. But when push comes to shove, I need them to sign off and approve. And I got to say, the review process is the one piece that if I could find one way to shorten the review process, that would be great because I finish the content and then it's a week or two before I get notes back on any errors or corrections and whatnot. Yeah, and I see Jane's point, access to new system training. That actually is the heart of one of the little case studies that we're going to take a look at in just a moment. But I see that now we're talking about money challenges. So I know all about this. We don't have money in our budget. Actually, that's where the sentence stops for me. We don't have money in our budget. But to buy good e-learning software like Articulate, Photoshop, or SoundForge, are there any free or low-cost alternatives? I actually know a fair amount, but I don't want to repeat things that everybody already knows. So if you could do the same thing, either in the chat or right in the slide, if there are free or low-cost options that you're using that you would recommend, write them in, and I'll see if there are some other pieces that I can recommend for people if there are any gaps there. It looks like somebody else is a fan of Audacity. I use that for all of my audio processing. I know that the most current version of PowerPoint and Articulate has got pieces designed to help you do audio processing and recording in them. Maybe I'm just a creature of habit. I think that Audacity is actually better. What I do is I record all of my audio separately, and then I import it into those other pieces of software.
So any other free tools or low-cost tools that you guys are using out there that you found? Or maybe you guys all have really high budgets, unlike Joe and myself.
That's kind of sad, Noelle, but maybe that's just the case. Maybe it's just you and I.
Actually, someone mentioned Snag It, and I've been a big user of Photoshop like forever, for like 10 years, and on the computer that SAP gave me, I don't have Photoshop, so again, budget, right? But they did give me Snag It, which is a nice little. I think it's around $40 if you just buy it on your own, and it's amazing. You can actually do a lot with it, a lot more than screen captures. You can do some pretty good cropping and some other editing, like fixing colors of photos and things like that. So I think I like Snag It too. Again, it's not free, but it's pretty cheap, and it's definitely a lot cheaper. $40 versus $800 for Photoshop is a big difference.
Yeah, do you happen to know what version that you are using? I think the most current release is 10, which I think is, and I don't necessarily just use it as a screen grab. It's got a built-in editor, so you can take a picture that you got from anywhere and do all kinds of nice little edits.
Oh, cool. We're still back on 8. We're a little behind the times.
Don't tell anybody, but I just bought my own copy.
See, poor Joe, he has no budget, so he has to go out and buy his own tools.
And he could probably get a job in academia.
Yeah, how about that? I would also recommend, just on a similar note, to anyone who is on the telephone line and it is, if that doesn't work as well as you'd hoped, I had finally broken down today and I bought a USB headset for my computer, and the sound is excellent. So I think that was $35. I did not ask Penn for that, but that's okay. I get to take it home with me. Chris made a good point that sometimes people get hung up on storyboards or templates versus the core content and objectives. I think they're both definitely important. But definitely people get stuck on the visuals when we're not quite ready to process the visuals yet. We just want to make sure that we're telling people the right information.
Okay, so I think Bobby's moving us along onto technology challenges. And first off, just out of curiosity, if you guys could type into the chat, again, or you can write on the whiteboard too, just some of the main authoring tools that you're using. Are you guys using, Articulate, Adobe Presenter, Captivate, Lectora? I mean, there's hundreds of them out there. Just curious what you guys are using kind of as your main authoring tool. Okay, so we have Teresa using Articulate.
Yeah, I see somebody wrote in there, okay, another note's Captivate, Breeze. Right.
Oh, there's a Captivate on the screen. So for those of you guys using, the Articulates and the Captivates, what are you finding? What are the strengths and weaknesses of each tool? Do you find, that like an Articulate, and pretty much, Articulate, Breeze, Adobe Presenter are all pretty much the same thing. Are you finding, that those are good in certain instances and maybe bad in other instances? And those of you using Captivate, are you just using it for soft training, or are you branching out and maybe using it for other types of training? Again, just go ahead and kind of type in the chat or write up on the board. Jane's got all the goodies.
Noelle, I would have to say that we don't actually use Captivate right now. Same reason as always. Had a version of it, but I think the last version we updated to was 2 or 3, and I believe they're on 5 now. Yes, 5.0 is easy to use with masters and properties. Can you give any comments as far as what maybe is easier to use in the more recent versions of Captivate if you've been using it for a little while?
Yeah, sure. I just started using Captivate 5 a little bit, although at SAP we're still back at 3, version 3. A little behind, but I like to get up to speed on the new tool. So in 5, I'm actually teaching my students right now, teaching them how to use Captivate 5. So it's really fun. And I'm really a big fan of Captivate. I've been using it now for like 7 years before it was even Captivate. And I think it's great. It was originally designed to do more software training, but I think now you can really do more with it. You can do interactivity. You can have click boxes and hotspots, and you can do branching. I still think a lot of people are still using, like the Articulate and the Adobe Presenter. We still have both of those, and sometimes I use those too. I think those are a lot easier to use because you're really doing all your authoring in PowerPoint, and most people already know how to use PowerPoint, and so it's easy to put it together. But I just find that I get kind of limited with like an Adobe Presenter and Articulate and what you can do. It's pretty much what you can do in PowerPoint is what you can do in those tools. So I like the Captivate just because I think you can do more with it, but it does definitely take a little bit more time to put things together.
And I see there's some notes here. It says Jane embeds Captivate simulations into Articulate, which sounds very cool. And Teresa notes that the content, sometimes people complain that the content advances too fast or too slow. And another note from Jane, you can play with the timing. That if there is such a thing as an old school new media user, I guess that's what I am, because just thinking about this, I actually, I'm going to say this out loud, please nobody laugh. I kind of like PowerPoint, but, and let me explain myself in that, I like it because I think of each slide as a single frame of a movie. And using that as my kind of mindset, it gets away from the all bullets on this screen. And makes me think, I can do pretty much anything I want. I can go any direction I want with the next slide. And I have felt it difficult to replicate that feeling to Captivate. That being said, there's a reason why stop-motion animation movies take forever to come out with, which is sometimes what it feels like I'm doing when I'm doing software training using Articulate.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. Do you want to talk about the first case that you put together? Since this was one of yours, but it's very similar to my project.
Yeah, and I'm going to bounce through the slides so we can see all of the content. I think I can just go forward. All right, I am, let's see. Bobby, would it be possible to advance to the slide that has the full content of the case example one? Sorry, I put two different versions of the presentation up there, and one has it kind of, there we go, perfect, thank you. All right. So, and before I mention this case example, just respond to Jane's comment. I also think of PowerPoint and layers as long as SMEs don't freak at the number of slides. Yeah, that is something that comes up. The last piece I did was a very small single topic training that ended up with 142 slides. But I hid the slide count so that people couldn't see that, and it became less of a problem. As far as the case example, so here's something that we did recently that I thought might be a common issue for a lot of us folks. We were asked to do the following. So there was an enterprise system upgrade for an existing user base here at the University of Pennsylvania. So we had about 800 users already making use of the system, and they needed to know how the new version of the system worked before we go live. Be honest, this has to do with university payroll, so it's kind of important to a lot of us here. The software delivery dates were contingent on multiple criteria, which is I think a nice way of saying that it was changing each time we met. and that we had absolutely no control or really say in when the software was going to be ready for us. On the other hand, the go live date was locked into a pretty short window because we had to go between two different pay cycles, and basically we had to get one group of people paid, bring the system up, have everybody use it so that the next group of people could get paid. So walking into that situation, we did have some pros, which are that the people were familiar with the existing system and business processes, but like so many of us, the functional software was not available until near the go live. So looking for comments from other folks as far as similar situations and how you might address it. Now, we have some of the strategies that we used on the screen, but how does this reflect what kinds of things that you may have done in recent projects of your own?
Hey, Bobby, can you maybe, I think if you go back a slide, then the case study points at the top are bigger.
Okay, I'm doing it. Or at least I'm trying here.
Bob, if you can hang on a second, I'm going to try to bring up, there's another version of this with fewer slides that I will bring up.
I got it, Joe. Or you can do it. It's right above this one in the drop-down list.
How's that? It's a little bit easier to read.
Great job.
That looks good. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, so Ken says it sounds typical for software development training, which I'm not surprised about. I just curious as to what ways do people have of this kind of scenario.
Is staying up till 3 a.m. for like 2 weeks straight an option, Joe?
Not if you're as old as I am. No, it is not.
Well, my experience with this is even if you stay up till 3 a.m., sometimes it doesn't help. It's a question of, you're still trying to paint a picture here of a moving horse. So you either need to get the horse to stop or you need to decide what image you're going to paint.
And Jane says offer delta training, i.e. only the new, not what they know already. That's actually exactly how we handled this particular project. We didn't really have much of a choice. Since there were 800 users that are all presumably knew how to operate our existing payroll system, I say simply, it wasn't that simple, but we basically lopped off the why and everything but the simple how-to for the new system and did a somewhat quicker comparison saying, here's how you did it the old way, here's how to do it the new way. And there were some drawbacks to that as well. One of the criticisms we got was that it was a little bit boring because it was very repetitive, because for each task that we put together, hire a new person, pay a weekly person, each one of those tasks was built on a similar framework, which means after you look at about 5 or 10 different tasks, it's all starting to look the same. All right, and thanks, Latanya. And Bosch and payroll systems are never simple. Did you do a follow-up training? No, we're still in our first round of this. We got past the first group of people to be trained to use it. The original request was to change our instructor-led training simultaneously so that all training would be web-based going forward. But of course, as I think it was Jane said, doing the Delta training, that wasn't practical. So we still have our instructor-led training for new people that is mildly revised to reflect the new system, but they get all the here's why you have to do this and background information, whereas the other folks just did the task-based system training online. Well, it looks like we've got a few more minutes, so would it be okay if we moved ahead to our second example?
Sounds like a plan, Joe.
Okay, well, of the two slides that we have, this is the clearer one, so we're going to go with this one. A slightly different situation. This was conversion of an existing training from instructor-led to web-based. However, this training is intended for both new and existing employees and doesn't really have a hard delivery date. The only folks who are invested in moving this is the training department because, hey, if we train it, no one is really concerned. But it was taking up a lot of time and resources in our classroom, so we felt strongly that for the minimal amount of complicated content to be delivered, that it really could be a web-based training. All right. The pros, for us at least, was that there are a low volume of ongoing trainees, so that frankly we got a new person who needs to be trained in the system once every couple of weeks. So we had a pretty wide window between training updates to decide, are we going to do one more instructor-led course, or is it now finally up on the web? The cons from an educational perspective is that the low frequency of using this system makes the retention for the trainee really a challenge.
I think this is a really good point, Joe, that one, it's not either or. One size doesn't fit all. The frequency in which people are going to use it, the frequency with which, that the content is going to change, how many people you're going to have in there, how many people you're going to have in there when, all those are considerations. I think this is a great point.
All right, and just following up on some of the comments, yes. Well, I would have to say, as far as the logging in for every procedure. So my comment is this: surprisingly, I have found that a lot of times we need to include the logging in as part of the process. However, after we include it once, then every other example is presumed to be from the point just after you logged in, which is what Noelle said just after.
See, we agree, Joe. It's good.
Sorry, I didn't read that far ahead. Otherwise, I would have said what Noelle said. Funny thing is, though, on the various system trainings that we've done where we did not include how to log in, largest percentage of support calls are, I am locked out, I can't get in, I don't know how to log in. Of course, that could be based on they've got nothing else to comment about since they can't get logged in yet, so they have no other system problems.
That's true. I know we did just like a little mini module on basically just how to log in, and then a real basic overview of kind of the interface and how the interface works, and then That way, anyone new, they're supposed to start with that module, but then if for some reason it does get to support, then support can just basically send them the link like, hey, take this module and learn how to log in and, basics. It's like a basic kind of navigation, logging in and navigation tutorial. So I found that helps too.
I think Jane has a good point here in the chat too. Could you have staff test out once a quarter? I'd like to see some hands. How many people are doing that? How many people are testing for prior knowledge or allowing people to test out, opt out? That I see in the chat that some of you are.
We don't necessarily do test outs per se, but the way we design most of our e-learning allows people to skip ahead to the assessment portion. So if it is something that they need to check to see if they know, they can go right to the quiz and try it again. As much as I would like to believe that my content is fascinating, I also understand that at some point in time you just want to say, I know how to do this and move on.
Hope those assessments are right on target, Joe, and matching those objectives. I mean, that's always the problem with allowing people to skip right to the test or allowing people to click through and get to that test at the summative assessment real quick at the end. Is the assessment better be right on, right?
Yeah, I recently had a person in my instructor-led classes, but they were making a comment about an online course I designed that I was very happy to hear, and they said essentially every time they got an answer wrong, they went back to the content and were able to specifically find what it was they should have known. And they also mentioned that they had done training on other topics and locations, and sometimes the assessment just kind of assumes, like, well, you should know this, but it's nowhere to be found in the content. If the person does know it, that's great, but trying to align the assessment and the content is always a bit of a challenge. Right. And Chris says some of our courses require a mandatory view of the course. Yeah, and sometimes that's just the case. Of course, we can't be sure that people are actually viewing it, but they're at least running it. And the assessment hopefully is aligned enough so that we have some confidence to understand the material one way or the other.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. I know I've done a lot of compliance training in the past, and a lot of times just depending on different laws, regulations, or, in your case, the SME request, they actually want to look at, if this course has, 20 screens, I want to make sure that they've clicked through at least, 80% of the screens sort of thing, or, a lot of times it'll be a test. They have to get a certain percentage on the test. Do that a lot in compliance training, and also, too, I've worked with some clients where, they're mandated where the employees have to take that training every single year. And a lot of times it's the same training, unless the laws have changed, but a lot of times it's laws and regulations that have been around forever. And, the students are required to just go through it every year. So I think in that case it's great to have that test out option for the people that they remember it from last year. They can test out, in the next year and not have to sit there and click through every single screen. But, in some cases when you're presenting new content, like in Joe's first case, where he has a new payroll system, no one's going to know that unless they're, somehow working in cahoots with the developers or something and developing the system. So, in that sort of situation, there's no real way to test out. But I definitely think if it's content that the learners could potentially know that testing out would be great.
Well, I just like to point out another thing that Chris said here in the chat. Our assessments are moving away towards case study-like questions with multiple choice options. I think that's awesome. At least it's an attempt to get that authentic learning and that applied. Anybody else using case studies with some multiple choices at the end? Part of the restrictions of some of these tools is you get multiple choice, short answer, matching, drag and drop. That's it.
Chris, I was just curious if you could quickly comment on, for cases that's not specifically related to compliance, what is SME driving at as far as mandating that you have to view the whole course?
And then also too, I think we're getting a little short on time, so maybe while Chris is typing his response in, just thought we would throw out, any final questions that you guys have, anything else you want to talk about, anything, maybe any challenges that you're having that you'd want to pose to the group, see if we can come up with a solution. And Chris says you lost the audio. Can everyone else hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, Noelle. I think Chris has had some audio problems the whole time.
Okay, so any final kind of comments or thoughts or questions that you guys want to talk about before we wrap up for the day?
Well, it looks like the sound got flaky for a couple people all of a sudden. I don't know why. But if that is the case, then there's two things. One is if the folks who are online here right now can keep in mind the idea of case studies, because I think this is something that we might want to develop a little bit further to see if it was something that we could share with different e-learning developers, some of our best practices and approaches to our different projects, to get ideas from what other folks are doing. Commiseration, if nothing else, but a lot of times we get some really good ideas.
Yeah, well, I'd like to first of all thank Joe and Noelle for doing this. I think we got some really good ideas here today. I mean, just sharing certainly the idea of using case studies with multiple choices, was a light bulb, and many other things, that were shared in terms of how to capture SMEs and some other things. Again, we like to be respectful of people's time, so big round of applause here for Joe and Noelle and their willingness to come and help us do the lunchtime learning. Folks, don't forget that we will be back again in November the 9th. And is there value in micro-learning? We hope to see you then. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful fall weather. Thanks for coming, and we will see you hopefully again in November. We're going to hang around for a couple minutes like we always do, so if you have questions or want to continue chatting, we're here.
Hey, Bobby, you want to stop the archive?